Okay, so yeah, the title, a little presumptuous. I'm making the claim that I'm going to be going to what the ultimate quest is. And yeah, a lot of things when you get to know me, I mean, I think that's with everything, of course. I mean, the Kung Fu I can do is not mine. I learned it from someone. So some things may seem familiar. I pull from modern Western science, psychology. Not that I have degrees in those, but I have been studying them for like, I would say about 30 years. Also Buddhism, Taoism, key concepts and principles from martial arts. So it's kind of like bringing a lot of things together, making it my own, and that's really what we do with all knowledge, you could say, right? So to make it even more bold statement, I'm going to claim that I also know what your ultimate quest is. And I don't. So there's a paradox there. You could say the quest is universal, but it's at the same time also unique. And so that's not everything we're going to be covering there. So we're going to be covering what is the ultimate quest. And there's another word kind of hidden in quest. Maybe some of you know that already. And I couldn't resist. There's actually a new slide I added yesterday. I looked into that quest, and then you can see that in the word quest, of course, the root is also question. And then what I just found out, I said, well, what does this eon mean? So the roots of eon in Latin, in Spanish, in German, as far as I can, and there's more, is actually linked to energy, action, transformation, strength, courage, mastery, and leadership. I thought that was a nice discovery. I'm not saying I'm the only one that discovered that, but I was like, okay, so a quest is a question, right? I mean, when we have a problem, we ask a question, there is a problem, you could say, right? I mean, that's why you have a question or a challenge. So yeah, so what is ultimate? So that middle part is what I found quite intriguing, because that actually links to the whole ultimate quest. And if there's an ultimate quest, are there also quests that aren't ultimate? I would say yes. I would say the ultimate quest is the ultimate quest. And as a bonus, I'm once again going to be presumptuous that I'm also going to be answering that towards the end by answering two simple questions, which I thought the happy panda looked good with this. So these are like the simple questions, right? What is the meaning of life? And what is the meaning of your life, and what is the difference? And there too, I'm going to say that I know what the meaning of life is and what the meaning of your life is, but I also don't. So you're going to see again universal aspects and very personal aspects. The ultimate quest, it might be familiar. Has everyone heard of the dark night of the soul? Okay, so a dark night of the soul. So there's different quests, like I said. There's like the ultimate quest. Dark side of the soul is when you go through a dark period in your life. And, you know, without comparing, I mean, we could say, hey, we're in the Western world here. What do we have to compare to some, you know, poor countries where they can't even feed their children, etc. But I don't think we should look at it that way. I mean, do what you can about these situations, but I'm talking about our own life. So I'll go more to the dark night of the soul, because it's actually what causes fear, stress, and I don't use the word suffering, because if I go to a corporation, I say I'm going to talk about suffering, you know, I probably won't get invited. So that's not really something I want to do. So the ultimate quest is rooted in the hero's journey. I'm sure some of you have heard of the hero's journey. Okay, so Joseph Campbell in 1949 came out with a book, The Hero with 1,000 Faces. And what he had basically done, and he got most of his information from Carl Jung. So he did a lot of research and found out that no matter where you live, whether it was Bali or South America or Russia or anywhere, that there's a certain narrative that stories, people's lives actually follow. And if you look at mythologies, I'll go to the next one. I think it shows that a little bit more. Okay, that's the hero's journey. I'll go into a little bit. Yeah, so it's found in books. Any book with some deeper meaning. We know we have like deeper books and stuff like that are part of this hero's journey. So we discovered they were all kind of similar. There was a similar path, and it doesn't mean you always complete this whole journey. You can step in somewhere else, but if life goes the way you would want to, then it follows a certain path, a certain route. And he put it in some books say more, but basic to 12 steps, which we're not going to cover. So that's why I say this is a slide, you know, that I could spend an hour. So look more to the right. So you'll already notice things. So who's watched The Lord of the Rings?
Yes.
No? The Hobbit?
Regularly. Yes.
Okay, if you think, and just take a minute, and we're not going to spend too long, maybe like 2 or 3 minutes on this slide. So you have look at The Hobbit, right? Or The Lord of the Rings. You have your ordinary life. And this can be an internal journey, yeah? It's not necessarily you go out into the world. It's all mythology, it's all in metaphors, you could say. But it could also literally be, because we are creatures of motion. We move towards goals, whether you know it or not. So you have your ordinary life. You're in the shrine, right, minding your own business. And then there's a call to adventure. Now, and that we will get into. The call to adventure is usually something that interrupts your ordinary life. So it's a form of a crisis. Right, and there's very many different crises. There can be loss of a job, there can be relationships to break, it can be death, injuries. We're going to go into that a little bit because it's important. So something happens that disrupts your ordinary way of being, and which calls you out of your comfort zone. We know that, right? We all know about. So I call it your comfort or discomfort zone, because it might also be that you're actually in a very discomfortable place for too long. But sometimes we also get too comfy, right? So. And then you might recognize that there's always kind of resistance in the beginning to go out of our comfort zone. That's the refusal. The interesting part is you read through this, by the way, so he discovered that this is not something he invented. He found it it's in the New Testament, the Old Testament, in the Torah, in the Quran, in Buddhism, in all narratives that have been passed on since we've been sitting in circles telling stories. That's how history used to be passed on, in the narrative form, right? So there would be a story. He did this, then did that, and then we would get our lessons from these stories. And that's what I want to share a little bit. What are these lessons? And I will be sharing my own personal story as well, so that you can relate to it. Because the things that I'm offering today, I've applied to my own life, and they've been very valuable. And I'm not going to be assumptuous to say that they'll all work for you, but I do sincerely hope that some of the things you pick up today are also useful in your own life as a guidance. You have to always feel it in yourself. So like I said, they're more pointers. So that's maybe a hint when I say, I know your ultimate quest. Okay, so yeah, and so I'm not going to go into all, I actually didn't want to even go into that at all, but very briefly. So then meeting a mentor, you often find that during periods like this, it can be someone these days online, it could be a relative, it could be someone older, Gandalf. It's in Star Wars, Yoda. No, but it's true. You notice, familiar, right? Think of all narratives, all stories. And once again, some aspects can be skipped over, but it's usually this. And answering, so you commit yourself, and there's tests. And of course, if you watch a horror movie, it usually ends around 6.
Yeah.
Right, so even there, well, they're tested and they die, right? They get their head chopped off or something. So that, and then there's allies. So then you find, I mean, you could say that in psychology, they also talk about things are either tools or obstacles, and you have your enemies and your friends that help you along, right? So along your journey, you will find things that help you along. We actually function that way. We don't look at things and just see what they are. We see the function of them. So, and then you have people that help you along and that you have to fight off. And then there's approaching. And George Campbell said, the cave you fear to enter is the one you should enter, which is a very beautiful statement to think about. The cave, a cave, like where the dragon lives, that you fear to enter is the cave you should enter. Think of these stories often have like a dragon, right? And a dragon is a representative of all predators. If you think about it, right? It's the, whatever our main predators are, snakes, reptiles, cat-like animals, and birds. So what is a dragon? It's all those together. And then he also fire comes out, which can destroy or purify. And what is always laying with the dragon? Those who watch The Hobbit.
Gold?
That of value. The most valuable thing that you should go after is in the cave you fear to enter. That's all. So this really came out. All biblical stories, like I said, the Torah, all have that narrative within them. They're all about that. It's all about this event. So he just discovered that that was anywhere. It didn't matter what the religion, what the culture, where they lived. It all has this nerve in some form or another. I mean, you could make a little tree under each one and branch it off and go into different things. So then you had the approach, then you had the ordeal, and then you transformed. You transformed. You gained new insights, new wisdoms, new ways of looking at things. And you integrate that. So it's not that you let everything go, but some things you let go and some things you add on and you integrate and you grow. That's transformation. And then you could actually add that 12, make it a little bigger. You actually come back then to the world you left, often finding that you sometimes lose friends, change jobs, go a totally different direction. Not always. Some people can't go along with you anymore, your transformation, if it was big. Anyone recognize that? I see you, yeah. So we sometimes, as we get older, but it can happen at any age, I personally found I have less and less friends, but the ones I have are really deep, right? I mean, that's cliche, but it's true. And because not everyone can deal with growth, because growth is also a judge. You want to see, you could say the highest spiritual value in a sense is how can you be of service? How can you give back in some form or another? It doesn't have to be grandiose. It can be. I mean, to me, a parent who's giving love to their child and their child can spread that love into the world, what higher ordeal could you have? I mean, that's beautiful, right? If everyone did that, it would be a peaceful planet. So it doesn't have to be a Gandhi or a Nelson Mandela. It can be, if that's your calling.